Hi, my name is Cheri Tree, and I'm so excited to be part of this amazing AI for Positive Impact Summit. The future of education is really something that is important to discuss, especially if we want to create change at a systemic, fundamental level. And AI is something that is relevant and important to consider. How can it impact and create positive change for good going forward? We could probably all agree that education is not a one size fits all approach. My mom was a school teacher. My dad was also an educator. And I can remember countless stories of my mom talking about ways that she had to adjust different scenarios based on the students that were in her classroom. And I want to expand a little bit on that. First of all, consider an education. And it doesn't matter if the student is young in the elementary school, middle school, high school, or even the university. A one size fits all approach just doesn't make sense, does it? Is it possible that you have children that are in your classroom, for example, that might be the perfect student, rule following, looking for the assignments, crossing off the homework, and getting everything done exactly according to plan? Is there another type of student that's maybe a little bit restless, has ants in their pants, can't wait to get out of the classroom, is possibly challenging or a little bit disruptive? Is there another type of student that might be super kind and sweet, the type that makes everybody feel welcome, invited, sits down with them at lunch, the new kid in the school, and they just get along with everybody? And is it possible that there may be a type of student that's very smart, intellectually advanced, and socially awkward? And how do these all fit together in this incredible puzzle piece called your student body? Well, this is where we come in, and I want to introduce myself. I'm Cheri Tree. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Codebreaker Technologies. I'm going to share a few slides with you, and I'm going to invite you to open your mind to a possibility of understanding the way that we educate differently, and then how do we harness the power of AI to be able to accomplish that specific objective. Let me share my screen and thank you for participating today. Now, this is me. Our company is award winning and industry disruptive because we essentially cracked a code around people. And then we built technology to help us really understand people at a very amazing, powerful, deep level. And today I want to talk about how we apply that in the education initiatives. First of all, I'm the innovator of a methodology called BANK. BANK is essentially based in the art and science of influence. And isn't that what we are essentially trying to do in education? Is not just educate, but influence that student, influence them to want to learn, influence them to engage, influence them to apply new ways of thinking, new skill sets that they're developing, and so forth. Now, I'm going to share with you this concept behind BANK today, and then apply it, as I mentioned, into the AI. The secret is that we discovered that not all people are the same. Of course, we're all different. And originally, we applied this concept around people being different to business and specifically the sales process. We discovered that sales was not a numbers game, it's a people game. Likewise, we also discovered that education is not a numbers game, it's a people game. And this is where our journey begins today. Now, there was a study that was done in the sales process where they asked the question, do personality types matter in the sales process? And I want you to replace sales with education. And let's look at this statistic a little bit differently. This comes from the Challey Group. What they published was that only 18% of buyers, or let's say students, will buy from a salesperson, or how about will engage with a teacher who does not match the student's personality type, versus 82% success rate when personality types are aligned. In other words, if the educator, the teacher, the instructor can align their personality style to match the personality style of the student, it's possible that they could be 300% more effective and influential in guiding that student in the education and learning process. And this is where things start to get very, very exciting. All of this is based on a concept of science. The type of science specifically that I want to introduce you to is called personality science. This dates back thousands of years to the Greek philosopher Hippocrates, who basically discovered that he could divide the entire human race into four different groups, and he could treat them with medicine differently. Well, imagine now if all of your student body could be divided into these same four different groups. And imagine if you could educate them differently. You see, it's probably a universal agreement that our education system is broken and that schools and education programs are not getting the results that they are hoping to get, the learning results, the testing results, graduation results, and so forth. What if there was a different approach? What if we could take personality types and personality temperaments into the process and actually begin to educate differently? See, the most common mistake that's likely being made by educators, and it's not their fault, they just don't know what they don't know, is based on whatever their dominant personality style is. Chances are, when there's in their classroom that matches that personality style, there's going to be an immediate connection. This is likely going to become their favorite student, their teacher's pet. But what about when they're educating and trying to teach the other three personality styles? Chances are there's going to be a lack of engagement. There may even be some personality type conflicts. This means that a teacher risks not being as effective potentially 75% of the time. And that's why it can be so frustrating to be a teacher trying to educate a group of students where a one size fits all approach just does not work. Maybe the lesson plans need to be adjusted. Perhaps the topics need to be changed. Perhaps the teacher needs to be changed. And maybe even the homework assignments different. Let's take a closer look and go a little bit deeper at this concept. What if you could actually be 300% more effective in your communication by modifying your approach and taking the bank code of the student into consideration? I'd love to use a quick example where imagine each of the four students of four personality types, which I will explain in bank in just a moment. Imagine that they are so different one from another. It's like you can speak different languages. Let's say that they speak a totally different language. Let's say that the blueprint or the B, the blue block that you see on the screen, let's say that that student speaks English. Well, if you are an educator who's speaking English to an English speaking student, you're probably going to have your communication understood and received. You're going to accomplish your objective. But let's say that the red block with the A that stands for action doesn't speak any English at all. Let's say that they speak French. Could you imagine how ineffective you would be if you're delivering your entire message, your lesson plan, and the homework assignment in English, and the student doesn't speak it at all? They only speak French. Well, it'd be foolish to do that, right? And I want to use a real life example. I come from a military family. My father was in the military. And one of our early assignments in my life was to be stationed in France. My dad taught at the Air Force Academy in France. And so my parents decided to put me into a French school, full immersion French school, no English whatsoever. And I started off kindergarten over there. I was 5 years old. My mom was on pins and needles the day that I came home from school for my very first day. And she said, "Cheri, what did you learn?" And I said, blah, 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 bonjour. Blah, 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 bonjour. And my mom thought that was so fascinating that she told me the story when I was much, much older and could remember it. Think about it. I didn't speak any French. And so the entire class was something I could not relate to, could not understand, couldn't implement, couldn't apply, and thus was a frustrating process for me. The only word I understood the entire day was bonjour, because I was able to connect the dots that bonjour meant hello, and therefore that word had meaning to me. Okay. So if you could suddenly change and begin to speak French to someone who speaks French, You say, bonjour, je m'appelle Cheri, j'ai habité en France 3 ans quand j'étais petit, enchanté. Again, if you speak French, you're like, oh my gosh, you're speaking my language. In this example, you're 100% more effective in your communication style and thus your ability to influence that student when you speak their common language. So in this case, you can now engage and communicate and educate 2 out of the 4, right? The English speaking blue, the French speaking red block. You increase your influence by 100%. What about when you have the yellow block, the third type of student and their personality type, where they don't speak English or French? Let's say in this example, they speak Romanian. Well, you can imagine how frustrating it is if you're like, I don't speak Romanian. My student speaks Romanian. We're not going to communicate effectively. But let's imagine now that you actually have the ability to transform your communication into Romanian. You say, Bună ziua, mă numesc Cheri, am fost misionară pentru Biserica mea. Am locuit în România pentru un an jumate, îmi pare bine. Now, again, if you have no idea what I'm saying, neither does the student when you're teaching your lesson plans in the wrong personality style. Perhaps they're totally disengaged and they might even be annoying and obnoxious, or they might become totally socially removed, right? They might shut down. They might put their head down. They might want to get into their cell phone and so forth, or look out the window and just stare at the abyss. In this case, you can now be 200% more influential by speaking that third personality style's code. And let's say that the fourth personality style is so different from you. Let's consider them your polar opposite. Let's say the K stands for Korean. And you might say, well, my goodness, I don't even like spicy food. But what if getting that child educated and graduated is dependent upon your ability to speak Korean? What the bank system does is it allows you to identify what of the 4 personality styles they are, and then how do you modify your communication? You might say in Korean, 안녕하세요. 나는 방금 조금밖에 못해요. And the person who speaks Korean suddenly says, I feel like you're speaking my code. So in life, when you meet someone who matches your style, you likely identify them as your best friend. There's an instant connection and an instant chemistry. And this is happening in the classroom, not just the boardroom or the bedroom. This science is universal, and that means that it's absolutely impacting education and the way that that education is being received and applied. I want to help you be so successful. And again, I'm getting to the AI, but first we have to understand the basic construct of the importance of the 4 styles. Now, you've heard me mention BANK as an acronym and BANK. Let me explain just briefly what these are. Someone who identifies themselves more as a blueprint, and I use the color blue, the color is in the word blueprint, and they're a little bit colder to approach. A student or a teacher or a parent or an administrative faculty member who would identify themselves more as blueprint has the value set of someone who prioritizes stability, structure, systems, planning, processes, predictability, responsibility, duty, rules, credentials, titles, and tradition. You can see why this might appear to be the perfect student because they are literally ready to learn, listen, and complete the assignments exactly as instructed. But what about when you meet the A that stands for action? Typically, I use the color red because they act like they just drank Red Bull for breakfast. They've got ants in their pants. They want VIP red color carpet treatment, especially as they become adults. And they act like they're a red stick of dynamite ready to just explode at any moment. This is often the child that gets diagnosed as ADD or ADHD. But consider that possibly they just have a completely different set of values. You see, the action personality type values freedom, flexibility, spontaneity, action, opportunity, excitement, attention, stimulation, competition, winning, having fun, and image. From head to toe, it's all for show. Why is it that they wear a certain set of clothing or Again, they just act like they're not interested in the curriculum unless it's the PE class and so forth, where they can engage in an athletic way, for example. The action personality type gets bored very easily with traditional curriculum. They have a completely different set of values. They don't want to be in the classroom, they want to be out of the classroom. And again, that's why we're going to have some challenges. You can see how this is frustrating to a blueprint educator teaching an action style student. It's grounds for massive challenges and frustration on both sides. Now let's move to the N that stands for nurturing. Notice I use the color yellow. This person is warm like sunshine, they're sweet like honey, and they've got a heart of gold. The nurturing personality type is the perfect child to make everybody feel welcome. They have kindness in their core. Well, consider it's because they have a completely different set of values. This gentle, kind human values relationships, people, authenticity, personal growth, significance, teamwork, involvement, community, charity, ethics, harmony, morality, and contribution. This person doesn't care so much about the lesson plan. They care about how you make people feel. Was the new student included? Did they sit down with them for lunch? Do you remember my name? So the nurturing student requires a completely different, much softer, kinder approach. If you are a disciplinarian style instructor, you're going to have conflict. You're going to hurt the feelings of this nurturing personality type. And then we move to the fourth personality style, which is completely different from their three counterparts. And that is the K that stands for knowledge. I use the color green. This person loves learning data, science so much. I thought Microsoft Excel spreadsheet logo is green, or in the movie The Matrix, the computer code that falls across the screen. These are the intellectuals that are in your student body. They value learning, intelligence, logic, self-mastery, technology, science, research and development, universal truths, expertise, competence, accuracy, and the big picture. This is the one that wants to geek out in the computer lab or the chemistry class, or they want to dissect the frog over and over again. This person cares deeply about their assessments and test scores and put them into learning environments that focuses on their IQ and completely ignores the social aspect and EQ of emotional intelligence. And that's why there's such a disparity in the classroom. So again, taking all of these into consideration, and I asked, what is your bait code? And here's what we discovered was that you or the student body, every single person is actually a combination of all four types. They're part blueprint, part action, part nurturing, and part knowledge. And that's what we call their bank code. If you think of a bank code like a PIN code, that entire 4-digit sequence matters. So here you've got 24 different possibilities of different bank code combinations. If you are an educator, are you aware of your own bank code? We're going to invite you to crack your code and be able to take our free assessment so that you can have the awareness and insight of your own self. And now imagine if you could crack the code of the students that are a part of your classroom. And if you could begin to alter the way that you educate, the way that you assign them homework, the way that you engage them in the process. Perhaps you break them up in different groups. Maybe some groups should be based on their personality style, the dominant one, the B's, the A's, the N's, and the K's. Perhaps sometimes you do exercises where you blend a dominant from each code. You have a group that's a combination of the B, the A, the N, and the K, like the Breakfast Club, right? Completely different personality styles. Well, we as a company came up with a really fun, fascinating, quick way to assess which one you were. And that was with a set of 4 cards. These are what's called the bank cards. And we can hand them to you as an educator. We can hand them to the faculty and admin. We can hand them to the parents, and we can hand them to the students, and we can invite them to crack their code. And this became a very fun, engaging way to determine which one you're talking to, who is actually in your classroom. What is the bank code of your student body? And how can you begin to adjust things differently? And as our methodology progressed, we began building technology and specifically artificial intelligence to the point where the AI, and I'm going to introduce you to Kai here in just a moment. The AI, we call it Codebreaker AI, can help us to determine the bank code of the person that we are specifically addressing. Now, our bank code, the AI, Codebreaker AI, can decipher the bank code of any content. You can take an email from the principal or the superintendent or an email communication from a parent. You can run it through our AI, and the AI would be able to decipher the bank code of that writing sample. Let's say that you want to post a bulletin board announcement. The AI can help you know what bank code you wrote it in. And now with our advanced AI, piggybacking the concept behind ChatGPT, imagine ChatGPT supercharged and infused with the bank codes. And this is where I want to introduce you to Kai. Kai is the knowledge personality type, K, because he's an AI. So that's spelled Kai. Kai also happens to be the name of my son. I'll talk about him in just a moment. Now, Kai, imagine him as your new best friend and assistant to the teacher, the teacher's assistant. Let's imagine Kai can actually help you accomplish your work and your objectives as a teacher, as an educator. And I'm going to actually demonstrate how this works. Let's say that you actually want to ask Kai how you could modify your lesson plans based on the bank code of the students that are in your class. We organically started having this happen when we had teachers that were going through our education on bank and attending our curriculum, consuming our curriculum, attending events like our Codebreaker Summit and so forth. And they were learning about the bank codes, and then they were going home and going to their classroom and actually applying it. Some of our first early case studies were teachers who cracked the code of the students and began assigning them homework differently based on their dominant bank code. And this was disruptive. Okay. Now, together with AI, what if the AI could actually assist you so that you don't have to overthink and overcomplicate this process? What if you just ask Kai to help you do it? So let me share with you, and I'll actually do a quick little screen demo here. I'll stop sharing my screen on the PowerPoint, and instead I will share my screen on our AI. So let me show you the power of Kai. This is our system, our website, and down here in the corner, you'll notice our little Steed logo and this little robot picture image, if you can see where my mouse is. Okay, you click on that, and it's going to pull up our AI interface. And now let's say that you want to create 4 styles of curriculum, one for a blueprint that's very structured, one for an action, someone who's got ants in their pants, one for a nurturing person, and one for the knowledge intellectual. Okay, so what this will ask you to do is it'll ask you, what bank code do you want to target? So let's say I'm going to just pick someone who is more blueprint dominant. Let's say that their bank code is this first one of BANK, happens to spell out bank, the acronym. And then now you could prompt it. And of course, we can help you know what prompts to use and so forth, but it's not rocket science. It's just personality science. So let's say I say, hi, Kai, please give me 5 tips on how to engage a 6th grade student and assign them homework based on their bank code of blue. Okay. So let's say that that's what I type as a prompt. In other words, I want to create some assignments and homeworks for my blueprint students. Give me some tips. I personally am an action personality type. You might detect that in my tone, my enthusiasm and excitement. I need help with my blueprint students because blueprint is last for me. It doesn't come naturally for me. Let's see what Kai says. So I type that into the chat and I ask Kai to go to work. And now Kai is simply analyzing my request, and he comes up with some suggestions. For example, He says, engaging a sixth grade student with a focus on order, structure, reliability, etc., involves careful planning and clear instructions. Here's 5 tips along with suggested homework assignments. So the AI just came up with this. You saw it took just a couple of seconds for it to go to work. Imagine the perfect teacher's assistant doing that. So number 1, establish clear expectations. So an engagement tip, start each lesson by outlining what you expect from your student in terms of behavior, participation, and homework submission. Clear guidelines foster a structured learning environment. And then it gives you a homework suggestion. Create a weekly planner for the student detailing daily tasks and deadlines. For example, reading a chapter each night with a summary to be written at the end of the week. I captain. And there you go. And the AI, in this case, Kai, generates these 5 tips that you prompted it to do and homework assignments specifically for a blueprint. Now, let's say that I want to do this exact same exercise again. I'll copy what I wrote. I'll click my go back button and let me go back and find a different code. Let's say in this case, I want to write the assignment for someone who has my bank code. I'm action first, followed by nurturing knowledge blueprint. And I paste the same thing here in this case, and I change it to simply the bank code that's dominant in action. And I'd ask Kai, go back and do this assignment for me now. Now our AI processes it, generates here the feedback. So for example, I'm excited to share 5 dynamic tips to engage a sixth grade student and effectively assign them homework that resonates with their energetic, ambitious nature, right? The little Johnny who got diagnosed as ADD. Perhaps we don't need to medicate them. Perhaps we just simply need to educate them differently. My 2 cents off the record, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I'm just an expert in personality science, and it does make a difference. So let's say in this case that number 1, set exciting challenges. Frame the homework as an exciting challenge that can be accomplished rather than a routine task. For example, complete the math puzzle and become the class's top problem solver. You can see how automatically this puts it into a competition. My son is nurturing followed by action. And do you know for his bedtime routine or even the morning routine, most of the time we have to create a contest to see who can get dressed the fastest, brush their teeth the fastest, get in bed the fastest, and so forth. The A is a competitive nature. And so creating homework that creates competitions is going to engage the action personality type. Perhaps they're not even interested in the math, but they're interested in winning. And so they do the math so that they can win. This is an example. Now, again, let's click the go back button. Thank you, Kai. Let's find a student who's more nurturing, and let's say that they're nurturing blueprint knowledge action. And I say, okay, Kai, I'm going to paste you the same thing. Give me 5 tips on how to engage a sixth grade student and alter my homework based on the dominant bank code. Nurturing. And I click go, submit, and our AI is processing it. Your teacher's assistant is thinking, and it comes up with this. For example, it says, engaging a sixth grade student and assigning them homework in a way that resonates with their nurturing personality requires a focus on community, support, and emotional connections. Here's 5 tips that are tailored for this approach. Thank you, Kai. Number 1, create a supportive learning environment. Emphasize the importance of teamwork and mutual support. Encourage the student to collaborate with classmates on a group project or study groups. Highlight how their efforts can positively impact others, fostering a sense of belonging and shared purpose. An example assignment, partner with a classmate to create a presentation on how to help the environment. Each student can contribute ideas and support each other's learnings. Oh, I mean, this is disruptive for the future of education. I can only imagine how my mom could sit there and just simply type a few key prompts into our AI and have it generate entire lesson plans and homework assignments. And even how would I talk about the topic of environment or climate change to my group of students from a blueprint perspective, from an action perspective, from a nurturing perspective, from a knowledge perspective, because the one size fits all approach doesn't work as effectively. Now, again, in this case, I'm going to go back to the drawing board and let's choose an alternate bank code. Let's choose the knowledge bank code. Let's say that we choose the KANB. Again, there's 6 different primary codes for each one, and you can get very granular to the detail of the bank code, or you can just simply target primary code. There's no right or wrong. I'm just giving you a quick example. Let's say now we do the same exact prompt, only we want the assignment for the knowledge student in our class, the one that's very smart, has a big brain, high IQ. Okay, certainly engaging a 6th grade student who values in-depth understanding and intellectual curiosity requires a thoughtful approach. Kai is very smart this way. Here's 5 tips designed to resonate with a young intellect who thrives on knowledge. Number 1, encourage inquisitive thinking. Engage your intellectual curiosity by exploring the fascinating world of science experiments. Questions like, what happens when we mix these 2 chemicals, right, in chemistry class, or how does electricity produce light, can prompt you to think deeper and learn beyond textbooks. And then, of course, it will go on to turn this into assignments. And you could say, Kai, like in this case, I don't see the actual homework assignment. So I say, Kai, thank you. Can you please give me 5 specific homework assignments for my knowledge student? Hit enter. And Kai's going to think and come back to you after processing and say, yeah, okay, all right. Let me take it a step further. How about we do a research assignment? Topic, the impact of renewable energy on global warming. Just imagine a little 6th grader. Instruction, write a detailed essay exploring how renewable energy sources such as solar or wind power contribute to reducing global warming. Use at least 3 credible sources such as a scientific journal, research paper, expert interviews, etc. to support your arguments. Discuss both the benefits and any potential drawbacks. Perfect assignment for a king. Now, when you ask an action personality type to do that, they're going to be like, I just want to get out of here. I don't want to do my homework. I want to skip school. I want to go straight to the sports field. And I just want to play football, soccer, softball, etc. Right? So again, keep in mind this topic of imagine harnessing the power of AI that is infused with personality science, understands intellectually and emotionally that each human is wired differently with different sets of values, and those values drive different behaviors. Those behaviors impact the education process. I care so deeply and passionately about this topic, and this is something very near and dear to my heart. I'm going to share my screen again with you and comment on this slide from Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela says, when you educate one person, you can change a life. When you educate many, you can change the world. What we have created here at Codebreaker Technologies is a division called Codebreaker Education. And we are very passionate about bringing our bank curriculum or methodology and our technology to the classroom. We have already been conducting pilot programs for schools, both at the junior elementary level. For example, our son Kai goes to a private school here, and we have started off phase 1 with educating the educators, the faculty, the admin, the teachers. We did in-service workshops where we taught the bank codes and we applied it specifically to education. You know, we had teachers that were coming out of that saying, out of 30 years of working here for this educational organization, this was the best training I've ever had. I had one teacher pull me aside and said, I've already seen a complete total difference in the way that I treat these young students differently based on their bank code. Whereas maybe they had a little bit more of a disciplinarian approach. They're now taking the filter of the bank code into consideration and knowing that, you know, the sweet little nurturing student needs a hug today, not a reminder that they missed their homework assignment. You see how this can already start to change the human being, the interactions in the classroom? I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute as I share with you some deep, profound thoughts. We are facing a massive epidemic, not just in education and with our education system being broken in so many ways, but what's also happening, especially with the significant increase of access to technology, there's a massive disconnect in people being able to communicate effectively. Most students you're probably seeing are heads down in their digital devices. They don't even talk to other human beings. They text. They text more than they talk. Their messages are encrypted with crazy acronyms that you sit there as a teacher and as a parent, you're trying to understand, like, what does that even mean? IDK, I don't know. ILY, I love you, and so forth, right? Like, there's all kinds of encrypted messages now in texting. And also there's a significant challenge with bullying. Back in my generation, bullying happened on the schoolyard, or perhaps someone in the classroom that was a different personality style that was making the smart knowledge person feel like a nerd and punishing them for being socially awkward, or isolating the action and saying that they had ADD and they have behavioral problems when they're just bored out of their minds and they just have an energy level that needs to be put out onto the field. I'm an action person, and how I channeled that excitement, that stimulation need, was competing in the business realm, building a company that's super competitive, creating millions of dollars and so forth. That's how a student like me turns out in real life, right? So there's no right or wrong. There's no judgment as to the code, but there is the need to adjust education styles. What I was leading to is bullying has now turned into cyberbullying, and suicide rates are escalating. More than 3,000 teenagers a day in the United States alone are attempting suicide. This is a massive, epic scale proportion. I know that you're going to be talking about health and mental health issues. This needs to be addressed. Personality types matter in this process. You might take into consideration how different personality types perceive and go through the school process, how they build their self-esteem, how they integrate into social circles. What if we could create an education environment where all codes are welcome and all codes are appreciated and all codes are celebrated? When the knowledge personality type misses a test question, some of them have literally contemplated suicide over getting one answer wrong. Whereas you look at an action personality type and they're like, oh my gosh, I passed. Because their scorecard is totally different. Their scorecard might be in how they're dressed and were they the prom king or queen, nothing to do with what their grades were. Nobody cares years later into the future. Okay. Educators always care. But in real life, not that many people care once school is over and in hindsight, right? Don't get offended by that. It may be a trigger for you and your bank code. Just keep in mind there's different perspectives, and it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So our initiative at Codebreaker is to connect and empower humanity by helping them to understand their bank code. So you understand your bank code. And as I said, we're going to give you a link to take our free assessment. It takes less than 90 seconds to crack your code. You're literally going to get a digital example of this where you can drag and drop these 4 cards into a sequence, vertically and horizontally, depending on your computer screen or mobile device. And when you submit your information, we will send you a detailed, customized bank code report. Socrates, the famous philosopher, said, know thyself. And this is going to give you a really great interpretation of yourself through the lens of your bank code. But more importantly, and why we created it is not just so that you can know yourself, it's so that you can know who they are, whether that's your student, your faculty, the parents of the student, the coach on the field, the people that you're fundraising with, the stakeholders, your boss, and so forth. And how do you adjust differently based on their code? You see, I'll use an example. If someone is more blueprint, then what emotional intelligence is and what it does through bank, because bank is known to boost emotional intelligence in very dramatic ways, and I believe the world needs a lot more of it, is to understand the bank code of the person you're talking to and then put on their lens and share their perspective. So if someone identifies as blueprint, put on the blueprint lens, take yours off and put theirs on. If you're more blueprint, then I'm going to tone it down. I'm going to streamline my thoughts. I'm going to give you a very detailed step-by-step process. I'm going to share with you what the timelines are, what the accountability is, what my expectations are, and so forth. And that's someone from a blueprint perspective. Now, if you take this off and you're like, well, now I'm dealing with someone who's action, then become a lot more fun. Be silly. Throw a dance party. Get yourself hyped up. Be super excited. Go to the football game on the weekend. Cheer on your athletic student that's out there crushing it in the field. Show them that you care more than just what their scorecard was on their report card, because that report card is not the scorecard that they care about. This is where you can be a lot more fun, right? You can be enthusiastic in your tone. Okay. Now, again, when you're dealing with someone who's nurturing, this is where you're going to completely modify your approach. Get connected to your heart. Get out of your brain academically. Get out of what the guidelines are and what you're supposed to be doing to hit your objectives and get your paycheck because you did your job correctly. And get into the spirit of what we're here for. How do you communicate with a parent who's maybe high nurturing and concerned about their child being bullied? How do you communicate with a student who just wears their heart on their sleeves and they need a completely different approach? Maybe they don't care about dissecting a frog. They actually care about the fact that you killed a frog and the frog's life matters, right? Take that into consideration. Is there an alternative? Can they dissect an onion instead of a frog if they don't want to kill the frog? Get it? And then what about that knowledge personality type who has been completely rewarded and celebrated for their intellectual capabilities, right? You put them in special classes and in special programs and they're testing out at high IQs, but they are so socially awkward and totally dysfunctional. And they don't know why they can't get the girl to go to prom with them. And they'd rather geek out and game all night with their buddies than even go to the dance. What if you could actually talk them through that process? What if you could help them build different self-esteem criteria beyond their intellectual capabilities? Okay, so you see, like, this filter creates a completely different experience. And that's where we as a company came up with the mantra, make people matter. And as adults, as educators, your faculty, with your fellow teachers, parents, coaches, and everybody involved at an adult level, make each of them individually matter. And then when it comes to the students, here's our campaign. Make kids matter. We actually built an entire foundation, a nonprofit designed to make kids matter. At Codebreaker, we do something similar to Tom's Shoes. Every time our clients buy our technology, engage in our training and certification programs, we donate one to a nonprofit or to a school that can't afford it so that they can actually begin implementing the bank systems into their ecosystem. Why do we do that? Because just like Nelson Mandela said, if we really want to change the world, we need to change education. It's my hope that together, the reason I wanted to contribute for this incredible AI for Positive Impact Summit is to take into consideration that maybe we need a new perspective. A one size fits all approach does not work. It's been proven for thousands of years that there's four different types of people, there's four different types of teachers, four different types of parents, there's four different types of students. Let's know what their bank code is. Let's make each person individually matter enough to know what their code is. Let's demonstrate emotional intelligence. And then let's leverage technology to make us better with people. At Codebreaker Technologies, we're not building technology to disconnect humans. We're building technology to understand humans, to engage humans, and to optimize those relationships better than ever before. Our clients have said, not only did this help me in my business and my leadership, it improved my communication. As an educator, it made me a more effective teacher. It created more positive outcomes and higher graduation rates and higher engagement rates and higher feedback rates. It's been said that bank has saved marriages. Bank has made parents better parents because they began treating their children differently based on their bank codes instead of a one size fits all disciplinarian approach. It's been said that bank has prevented suicide. Story after story after story. So our technology and our artificial intelligence is designed to help you understand people better and then equip you to be more effective in your ability to communicate, your ability to educate, and your ability to get the results and the outcomes that all parties are looking for. So again, thank you for attending this session. My name is Cheri Tree. I am the founder and CEO of Codebreaker Technologies. I am the inventor of the bank methodology. So far, we have done roughly 400,000 assessments of people who have cracked their code. I would love to invite you to be next. What I want you to understand as my final thought is that every single person in the world has a bank code. Over 8 billion people, every single one of them has a bank code. And they're either going to go to their grave with that code still locked inside of them, or they're going to get access to somebody to crack that code. I invite you to crack your code now, learn more about yourself, and then begin to apply the filter of how to modify the way that you approach, educate, and engage your students differently, and use AI as the best teacher's assistant. Kai can help you accomplish this objective. Okay. So make people matter, make kids matter. And when you do, you can absolutely help us change the world. Thank you so much. And I'll see you again soon.